Now that we have our first black samurai in a Japanese game, it's only right that we make him gay, and that is the Hollywood standard when it comes to strong black male figures, at least for the past few decades, where we've seen it consecutively happen in Hollywood, where we see these masculine male figures come out as LGBTQ oriented characters. And I think this being happening consistently in Hollywood is something that has been pointed out by numerous actors that have been involved in the space, like Dave Chappelle and other people. When they come up to this idea of stardom in Hollywood, it usually comes with a bit of emasculation in the process as well. And of course, when you hand a title like this to a group of white liberal activists, that's the first thing they're gonna do. You can see the staff for Ubisoft and the people they hired for this game are LGBTQ oriented individuals. And when you're gonna bring up minority groups, it's usually associated with these LGBTQ activist groups because they're most under the thumb of these activist groups. And I think this is what we see in entertainment in general when it comes to minority groups that don't have that much power. They're usually under the thumb of these activist groups, and I think that's what we're seeing with African American culture and a lot of pieces of its culture in the entertainment industry, where we see a lot of this agenda being pushed through the entertainment when it comes to minorities. And I think especially with African Americans, you see it in the cultures and the actors and the people that are put in places of inspiration and power within the industry. Not to say these people don't deserve it, but we see this consistently with the characterization of a lot of African male characters in entertainment, where we just see a lot of them being LGBTQ. The strongest ones are LGBTQ, and I think that is something that has annoyed me consistently, at least with Hollywood. Every time I see a strong black male next to a white woman, I already assume that he may be gay, at least in a TV show. And that has been happening less and less lately, but I think it's happening with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Beyond all the controversy that we know about the history of Yasuke, we got a lot of noticeable hints that this may be going into the LGBTQ side with both characters, Yasuke and the shinobi. And the hint is pretty clear with the female character itself, because shinobi were predominantly men and they had a different name for people that did the same thing that were females. They called them kunoichi, and that is the term they have for female shinobis, which may indicate some non-binary persuasion between the character. And I think we can see this kind of be placed subtly because they know people are averse to seeing this right in their faces. I think in the past they would have had this as proudly proclaiming these are LGBTQ characters. Within the video gaming space, they would have said this is the first time we see a Japanese LGBTQ character in a game or something like that, even though it may not be the case, but they would proudly say that. But they know this is a game they want to succeed, and it's already failing on all cylinders when it comes to the overall reaction from the crowd itself to this game, where people are having adverse reaction to their rewriting of history with the samurai, with the historical character Yasuke, trying to put him on par with other foreign samurais highly recognized within Japan itself. I know people often complain about another game, Nioh, but this game was made by a Japanese team and is based on a real character, William Adams, that was really designated as a samurai, had his own fiefdom, was under the shogun, had a whole historical presence within the archival history of Japan, and is highly recognized and has statues and is known for all of his exploits. So this is a real person that existed that had a historical imprint in society. Yasuke is the opposite, but of course it doesn't matter. It's a fantasy game. I'm up for creating a fantastical story about him. I think that's a fun thing they could have done with Yasuke, this black samurai. They could have made a historical fun account about his character, but I think the way they approached it is putting off the fans, because Assassin's Creed, the franchise, usually focuses on someone locally and culturally, and I think that is the thing that is throwing off the fan base, where they're seeing, okay, all these other cultures, you took someone locally and put that person as a focus, and they did the opposite here. They're trying to put modern day political ideology as the focus through their selection as the main character, and I think this is something people clearly see through, and their reaction blaming everyone as a racist and trying to say, oh, you like this white guy. No one's saying that. This is made by Japanese people about a real guy, and even if it wasn't the case, they're not saying the fan base is racist or anything like that. And I think that is the thing people are reacting to. But back to Yasuke and his probability of being gay, and it's actively a very high chance that he may be a gay character. Just looking at the people that are hired, Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft hires LGBTQ activists as consultant who wants to challenge moral standards around transgenerational intimacy. And you see this is the Asian woman right here. She's an associate professor at a university that focuses on the very real interactions between boys and men within Japan's society during this time. And that's something that is a realistic thing that occurred back then, even though it may not be seen as prevalent, but it did occur, especially kabuki theaters and everything else, because there was a lot of male actors playing as women. So this thing is something that historically is true. I wouldn't mind to see it in Assassin's Creed Shadows, but knowing these people and their overall activism, where they don't really know how to tell a good story, they're not out there to tell a good story, and they're not out there to make good gameplay or even realistic environments, as people in Japan are responding to some of the things they did in Assassin's Creed Shadows, where they're saying the architecture is not even right. The architecture looks like something from China, and they're criticizing this game for being way off in accuracy and depiction of Japan, because they're using architecture models from different countries and associating it with Japan. And that is something we rarely saw with Assassin's Creed in the past, where it was always hyper realistic with that time period that they were depicting, and that is not the case anymore. And you can see the complaints from the Japanese themselves, where they're saying, you're confusing our architecture. Did you even study this culture? And I think that's the thing that we're seeing here. There's a hyper focus on things related to the activists and what they care about. And what they care about is gender and racism. They don't care about the accuracy of the time, the weapons being used, the people actually there, or the architecture or the culture in general. They care about their own racism and genderism that they want to focus on, and them hiring an activist that's focused on male boy relationships as the focal point to address these romantic figures within society during that time is a huge red flag, and it kind of puts us in a position where we're gonna have to expect one or both characters to have romantic LGBTQ relationships. And I think this is the sad state of affairs, where we have people so focused on these small minutiae of these characters, where they're ignoring gameplay, they're ignoring the historical figures within that time, and the overall focus of this entire franchise itself, where it was always based on making things look very realistic to that environment and time space, where they kind of ignored that. They throw that away for their own political agenda. And I think that's the sad thing about this, is where we're getting people that are more focused on these tangential things that people really are not there for. But these activists, that's the whole reason they're involved in gaming in the first place, to push this agenda. You can see this from her quote, where she says, "I'm interested in gender, sexually, and power represented in pre-modern Japanese vernacular. My current project is on Chigo Monogatari, is a subgenre which depicts romantic relationships between Buddhist priests and adolescent page boys." So we can expect some very indiscreet romance from this game, and I think this is going to be the situation where you're going to push a larger amount of fan base if you're going to have priests and adolescent boys or anything related in that way happening in the game. And I think we can see this and expect it to happen, because this is Ubisoft. This is an activist organization at this point that is more focused on getting their message out there rather than making a great game. And I think the response that we're getting from people online to this game is the real instances of people realizing we're getting something that is mostly there for a political message, and everyone is unhappy about it. I know people are going to come back and say, oh, you're racist, bigots, whatever, this or that. No, we're just sad that the game that we loved is just now just an active messaging system for political activists, and not political activists that are even good at making games. And I think that's the sad part. If there were activists making great games, we wouldn't really care about their messaging, because they actually make a good game that's playable and fun with a good story. But oftentimes when it comes to these political activists, they don't know how to make a story. They're not there for a good story or something that is actually engaging to the audience. They're there for a message. And when you're only focused on your own personal message that you want to change the world and you want to change your audience, the audience usually resists that. And I think that's what we're going to see with Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I think that's a sad response that we're seeing from the audience, because they know we're getting a game that is not about the game players. It's about the developers and how they feel about modern political themes and world activities. And I'm just like, I don't really care what you have to say. Make a good game. And I don't think that's their objective at all. And I think Ubisoft is in big trouble because it seems like they're betting everything on this being a success. And you can just look at the like-dislike ratio. It's looking like it's going to be an utter failure. But hopefully this is not the end of Ubisoft. Hopefully Ubisoft changes. But I highly doubt it if you look at the staff people that they have on their games. It looks like they have a group of people that don't ever play games. They're just there to get their agenda out there. And whenever I see blue hair, multiple blue hair people, I just think, okay, we're at a march at a college campus with people that have no idea what they're marching for, but they got a message that they need to deliver, and they're about to deliver it in the worst kind of way possible. And that's what's going to happen with Ubisoft, and that's what's going to happen with these romantic relationships they want to inject in this game. I'm just not here for it. I'm here to play a good game, and it seems like most people nowadays are just not there for that task. And you can see this in a quote where they say romantically, they will also attract and be attracted to different types of people. Through the pair, players will get to experience a multitude of relationships. And I'm guessing you get multitude of choices, and many of those are going to be LGBTQ-esque. And I think we're going to have that with Yasuke, and definitely with the shinobi, the now female shinobi, who's probably non-binary in this situation. But it's just funny to see this develop. I think it's going to be something that is going to backfire for Ubisoft. They really tried hard to make something that was made for modern audiences, and now the modern audience, once they realize that audience doesn't exist, they're going to be in for a drastic failure of this game and their company in and of itself. So I'm just looking forward to it. You tell me what you think about the situation. Do you think Yasuke will be gay and his female partner as well? I think that's probably the case. I think there's no way to deny it. I think we're heading in that direction, and eventually we'll see a game that is going to cause controversy in the worst way possible for Ubisoft. But you tell me what you think about the situation. I'd like to hear what you have to say. This is Wagner Knows Why. Like, share, and subscribe. Catch you next time.